It's Game 5 of the NBA Finals on the road in San Antonio, and the New York Knicks are tied with the Spurs, 88-88, a little over a minute to play. A small guard named Jalen Brunson, 6'2" in a league of giants, rises up from 11 feet out and lets a floater go. If it falls, a city that has waited 53 years finally exhales. If it misses, the wait goes on, and maybe, this time, it breaks them for good. The ball is in the air, hold it there, spinning, frozen, because to understand what this one shot really means, to feel it the way that building full of New Yorkers feels it, you can't start here. You have to go back, not 5 days, 53 years. 53 years earlier, the New York Knicks were champions of the world. 1973. Willis Reed, the trophy, a parade down Broadway, and then nothing. For half a century, nothing. Think about what 53 years actually is. A child born the last time the Knicks won a title is old enough now to be a grandparent. Entire careers began and ended. A whole arena full of people learned to love a team that year after year mostly just broke their hearts. It is the longest gap between championships in the history of the NBA. Longer than any drought any team had ever climbed out of. And still, the people of Madison Square Garden never stopped showing up. You know this team now. Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby. But here's the part that doesn't fit the fairy tale. This was not a team of the tallest, the most athletic, the most unstoppable men in the sport. Their best player gives up half a foot to almost everyone he guards. For years, the smartest voices in basketball said it flat out. If your best player is small, you do not win titles. That's just the math. The Knicks spent an entire postseason making a mockery of the math. It almost ended before it started. First round, against Atlanta, the Knicks fell behind 2-1, with the next game in Atlanta's building. One bad night from going home early, they won that game by 16. And then basically never looked back. They marched to the finals and reached the championship round for the first time since 1999. And here is where it gets almost too perfect. The team waiting for them was the San Antonio Spurs, the exact same franchise that beat the Knicks in the finals back in 1999. The last time New York got this close, San Antonio is who ended it. 27 years later, the rematch was set, and the Spurs had a monster. Victor Wembanyama, 7'4", blocking everything that moved, 22 years old, and already called the future of the entire sport. The young giant against the aging guards. On paper, it was not close. So, how do you beat a team like that? The Knicks found the strangest possible answer. They let San Antonio land the first punch every single time, and then they refused to stay down. In every game the Knicks won that series, they were losing by double digits at some point. Everyone. They would fall behind by 10, by 12, by 16. The Spurs would start to believe. And then the fourth quarter would come, and New York would just keep coming. And then there was Game 4, the one nobody who watched it will ever forget. The Spurs led by 29 points. 29. They were up 76-49. And the broadcast was already reaching for the words you use when a game is over. It wasn't over. The Knicks clawed all the way back from 29 down, the largest comeback in the history of the NBA Finals. And with 1.2 seconds left on the clock, OG Anunoby tipped in the win, 107-106. Instead of the series being tied, New York led it 3-1. Here's the part people still can't believe. The Knicks won 4 games in that finals, and in all 4, they had been losing by double digits. No champion in NBA history had ever done that. Not one. They didn't win because they were ahead. They won because they would not lose. Which brings us back to San Antonio. Game 5. The chance to end 53 years of waiting. And the start was, of course, miserable. The Spurs led by 16. The Knicks put up the fewest points in a half they had managed all season. Just 37. Wembanyama was swatting everything in sight. One more cold night, and the series would head back to New York, carrying all the pressure in the world. But there was Brunson, 6'2", completely unbothered, pouring in 29 of his points in the second half, dragging an entire franchise's 53 years up the floor with him. When the Spurs pushed the lead to 10 in the fourth quarter, Brunson answered with 10 straight points by himself to tie it, which is right where we came in, 88 all, just over a minute to go. That floater in the air, it dropped, and the Knicks held on 94-90. After 53 years, the New York Knicks were champions again. Brunson finished with 45 points, the most any Knick has ever scored in a finals game. And he was named Finals MVP, joining Willis Reed, the man from 1973, as the only Knicks ever to win it. And there's a detail almost too good to be true. The Knicks clinched the title on June 13th, 6-13. Red Holzman, the coach who won those old titles back in the 70s, finished his Knicks career with exactly 613 wins. 53 years apart, and the numbers still rhymed. And then, a city that had waited 53 years completely and joyfully lost its mind. And I'll be straight with you, because this channel only works if I am. It wasn't all joy. Tens of thousands of people poured into the streets. Fireworks over Brooklyn and Central Park. Strangers who'd never make eye contact on the subway, hugging in the middle of Times Square. For one night, the biggest city in the world turned into the smallest town. But as the night went on, it tipped over. A few blocks from the Garden, buses were set on fire. 63 people were arrested. A teenager was shot in the crowd. The owner of the team had begged them hours earlier, celebrate, but be safe. A city that had waited 53 years for one single night couldn't quite hold the weight of finally getting it. And then, 5 days later, they did it the right way. A ticker tape parade up the Canyon of Heroes. Millions of people, blue and orange as far as you could see. Confetti falling on City Hall, the team holding up keys to the city, and Jalen Brunson, the small man nobody believed in, stood in front of all of them and said, "Damn, we really did it." If any of that gave you chills, if you've ever waited a long, long time for something and refused to give up on it, subscribe to The Last Ordinary Hour and stay with us for the next one. Trust me, there are so many of them, because half a century ago, a kid sat in a living room in New York and watched the Knicks win it all, and then spent their whole life waiting to feel that one more time. Never really sure it would come. And in the end, it came down to a small man, an 11-foot floater, and a ball hanging in the air over San Antonio. Nobody in that building knew yet if it would fall. History happens in the hours,